So hi, I'm Lindsay, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how I became conversationally fluent in Spanish, and I'm going to be sharing with you 8 tips that will help you also learn Spanish, or you could apply this to any language as well to help you become fluent. 8 tips. So if you're interested, just keep watching. So hi, I'm Lindsay, and I make videos about everyday life in South Florida, and I include neighborhood tours, tips for moving to and living in South Florida, and I am a licensed real estate agent in South Florida. So, well, in Florida in general. So if you're interested in moving to South Florida or just want to know more about living here, definitely subscribe to my channel below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, share with a friend. Let's get into the video. So as I have mentioned in other videos, speaking Spanish in South Florida is really important, if not more important than actually speaking English in South Florida. And so a viewer was asking me if I could explain how I learned Spanish and maybe give some tips. So that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. First, I'm going to share really quick my process for learning Spanish and how I learned Spanish to the level that I'm at today, and then I'm going to get into the tips. So first things first, I started to take Spanish classes in high school, and I took 3 years in high school. And then when I went to college, I thought, hey, maybe I'm going to major in biology or politics or something crazy like that. But by my 3rd year, I had no idea really what I wanted to do with my life. But I thought, hey, if I could at least learn a second language, probably when I do figure out what I want to do, I'll be at an advantage because I know a second language. So I ended up deciding the summer before my junior year to major in Spanish. So, and actually only took 2 years of Spanish in college. I clept out of the first 2 years. And then the spring semester of my junior year, I decided to study abroad in Spain. So I went to Spain for a semester, really just 3 months. And I think that was really my first experience to actually hear and live the language. And it's a totally different experience from studying in a book or studying in high school or college where you're not really surrounded by native speakers every single day. And those 3 months honestly were pretty challenging. Well, I'm going to share some tips in a second that kind of would have helped me if I had done these things. But I was kind of just trying to figure it out on my own. When I did the study abroad program, there wasn't a director there with us. It was just me and another girl, and that was it. And we were kind of figuring things out for ourselves. After those 3 months, when I came back home, I had 1 more year of college. And then after that, I moved to Spain for 2 more years to teach English in a language assistant program, which I'll put some links here for that. I have tons of information on my channel about that experience and teaching English in Spain if you're interested in that. So yeah, I went back to Spain for 2 years to be a assistant English teacher in Spain. And during that time is when I really learned the majority of my spoken Spanish and my conversational Spanish, even though in college and in high school I studied verbs over and over and over again. I really didn't develop the vocal fluency until I moved to Spain. So I went back to Spain for 2 more years to teach English, but really after the first year, I never planned on staying a second year. I thought, okay, I'm just gonna go 1 year and then I'm gonna move home and I'm gonna start, I don't know, doing something else. And after 1 year, I felt like I could hold a conversation in Spanish, but I didn't feel like really fluent, or if someone caught me off guard with a question that I would be able to just spit the answer out right away. I still felt like I was mentally translating a lot of things. So I decided to go back to Spain for another year. And after that year, I had a fantastic time. Love Spain. Best experience of my life. I moved home to do a master's in English, oddly enough, to continue teaching. And my goal was to go back and teach at an international school, which I never ended up pursuing because during my master's, I decided to move to South Florida and live at my grandmother's house in the Miami area. And mostly so I could stay kind of connected to Spanish, since a lot of people speak Spanish here. And what I realized was that more people speak Spanish than English here in South Florida. So I kind of enjoyed it because it was kind of like living in another country that speaks Spanish, but I didn't have to have a special visa or a special passport or anything like that. So I just kind of ended up staying down here. And I realized that even though I wasn't living in another country, I wasn't losing my Spanish skills either. So kind of had the best of both worlds, living here, hearing Spanish, and getting to practice it every now and then. So let's get into the tips for learning Spanish. Tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to actually take a Spanish class or course in your area. And a lot of people think, hey, I want to learn a language or I want to learn Spanish, but they don't really take it seriously. They often just say it's something that they want to do in the future or something that they need to do, almost like it's something they can do in a week. Like, oh, I've been meaning to learn Spanish. But it's not like that. It's something that you commit to learning for several years, at least, at minimum. But the first really important step is to actually take a class. And you can just Google Spanish classes in your city, take it at a local community college or a language school in your area. The reason why I think that classes are really important is that it actually helps you to take initiative and responsibility for your language learning. And when you're in class, you're hearing a teacher speak, but you also have other people to talk to listen to, and to respond to. Listening to others speak Spanish gets your ears used to hearing the language out loud, and then having the ability to respond and practice in a safe environment helps you become more comfortable with saying the words out loud. So for me, I would recommend number one, find a class in your area, whether you live abroad, whether you live in the United States, there are classes in your area. Google, find what you can, pick a class, and start taking classes. All right, tip number 2 is to actually study and practice Spanish outside of your class. So if you have class on like Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, on Wednesdays and Fridays, you're gonna be cracking open, and even on the same night of your classes, but definitely on the days you're not having class, crack open that book for literally 5 to 10 minutes after dinner or before dinner or when you get home or something like that. Just open the book and literally just practice phrases out loud. Practice reading phrases from your book out loud. For example, it might be, necesito un taxi, okay? Voy al baño. ¿Dónde está el baño? Practice little phrases in your books out loud over and over again. I would say at least 10 times, just so you can get used to the sound of the language, the rhythm of the language, and get your mouth used to saying these phrases over and over again. The more you repeat them, the more it's going to become natural to you when you have to use them later in real life. One thing I also got, especially before I traveled, was I would buy these little mini language dictionaries with little travel phrases in them, and I would go through chapter by chapter and just read the phrases over and over out loud. So there might be a chapter on meeting people, a chapter on hotel, a chapter on at the airport, and there'll be tons of little phrases. So you can literally just read those phrases over and over again. And there might be a few responses that you can also practice, because a lot of times we study the language so much and we prepare ourselves so much on what to say, but we aren't always expecting what the person is going to respond with. And that's another reason why it's good to be in class. You can be around people who are going to respond to you, and you're like, oh, they're going to give you directions, and then you're going to know what those directions actually mean when you ask for them. So to repeat, first, you're going to want to take classes. Second, you're going to actually practice outside of class. You can practice with another person, another student in your classroom. Definitely participate while you're in class. Just don't be afraid, because you're there to actually better yourself, to improve your ability to socialize and work with other people all around the world. So take advantage of being in class and study when you're outside of class as well. So tip number 3 is, once you've reached a high beginner or almost intermediate level of Spanish, once you've maybe taken 3 months or so of Spanish, or really when you feel comfortable with it, start to consume television, books, podcasts, radio, watching other YouTube channels or YouTubers that speak Spanish. Start consuming this media content in Spanish, even if it's just 2 to 5 minutes. Because I know a lot of times when you're just starting out learning a language, it seems kind of almost impossible to sit through a whole 30 minutes of something and not just be like, oh, what are they saying? But if you just say, hey, I'm just going to sit down for 2 to 5 minutes and just listen intently for 2 to 5 minutes, write down anything that you think you might hear that you don't know and you want to look up, just focus on those 2 to 5 minutes. You don't have to be watching a whole entire movie, but maybe just pop on Netflix in Spanish and pick a show. I always put the captions on, so you'll see it. That can help too, and you'll just write down any words that you might not know, which probably is going to be a whole lot, or maybe most of them. So just put it down to small segments, and just by watching for 2 to 5 minutes, you're going to be hearing the rhythm of the language, the accents, and new words. So once you've studied Spanish for at least a few months at least, and you have like a little bit of a foundation, start exposing yourself to everyday language on different types of media. And one side note, it's really important to listen a lot, especially even in the beginning of learning a language, because a lot of times in school we'll be doing textbook Spanish, did I say English? I meant Spanish. But a lot of times in school, we'll be learning textbook Spanish, and then when it comes to the listening section of a test or listening section of anything, you're like, it sounds so fast and so foreign, but the more that you listen to it, it becomes less foreign and it doesn't become as fast. You're like, oh, they said this, they said that. So listening is really important for learning Spanish or any other language. All right, so tip number 4, once you're ready, I would recommend actually going to a country and staying there for 3 to 6 months to a country that speaks Spanish or whatever target language that you're trying to learn. And I know for a lot of people, this might be a really big step, or this might be something that's totally doesn't seem possible, but if you're really serious about learning a language, you need to go and live in that country and culture and immerse yourself in the sounds and the lifestyle of those who speak it so you can understand it on a more fluent level. And one of the really easy way to do that is to just go and teach English abroad, or if you have a job where you can work remote, this would be a great opportunity to pick a country that speaks Spanish, and it doesn't have to be far away. If you live in the United States, you can go to Mexico. Mexico is not unsafe. I mean, there are safe parts, you just gotta be careful, but I lived in Mexico, it was fine. So just do your research. Or Spain, or anywhere in South America. But what I would recommend is to go to a smaller city, a city that's less touristy, that doesn't have a lot of foreigners living there. You just want to give yourself or put yourself in the situation where you're forced to use the Spanish or whatever language that you're learning. You know, if it's Spanish, you want to put yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people that speak Spanish and don't know that much English. Because in my situation, when I was first teaching in Spain for the first 2 years, I was living in a small town in southern Andalusia, southern Spain, and it didn't have hardly any tourism, like almost no tourism at all. Like every guidebook said just skip this city, which I was really super happy about because I don't want to be surrounded by tourists when I'm trying to live and learn a new culture. So I managed to learn a lot of Spanish there. But when I moved to Madrid, which is a really big international city, the capital of Spain, I felt like while I was there, I was using English all the time, and I didn't feel as connected to the locals there, and I think it hindered my ability to improve my Spanish. But when you go to a really small town that doesn't get a lot of people from other places, the local people tend to embrace you more and want to invite you to do things, out to eat, to parties, to events. And when you go to those type of gatherings, you're surrounded by the language and you just want to use it so you can communicate and meet people. So it puts you in that situation where you're almost forced to use it. And in those situations is when you're going to really grow the most in Spanish or whatever language you're trying to learn. All right, so for tip number 5, this is really for people that do actually go to another country to learn Spanish. And my tip would be to prepare yourself and teach yourself. And what I mean by that is to prepare yourself by creating dialogues that you're gonna need in everyday life. So right when you move, you're gonna need to find an apartment. So when I first moved to Spain, I created literally a dialogue that I just kind of translated before even Google Translate, like, hi, my name is... I saw your apartment online. Is it available? Can I come look at it? I had it all written down so when I called to find out, like, I could just literally say all these things. And I wrote down some responses. Sí, está disponible. Like, yes, it's available. Like, I wrote that down so I knew if they said that, then I was like, good to go. And different responses. But prepare little dialogues of everyday situations. Another one might be like, if you have little travel mini dictionaries, you're gonna have, or mini phrase books, you could have a little dialogue with a person in a hotel, like, hi, I'm here to check in, my name is blah, 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 and they'll give you the key, and you could ask them questions like, oh, where's the closest restaurant, or where's the closest grocery store? Like, I would write myself little dialogues and practice them over and over. Another dialogue that I did was when I would go talk to parents to teach their child, like private English classes or students from my school, I would have a little practice dialogue that I would write down that I would practice to say to the parents, like, hi, my name is Lindsey. I teach English in the afternoons. I charge blah, 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 blah. What days are you interested in? You know, something like that. I would write it all down in Spanish, practice it, so when I actually went to talk to the parent or text them or call them, well, when I first was living in Spain, we didn't really have text, but it wasn't that long ago. But just practice these little dialogues and say them to yourself out loud over and over again till it feels that it's coming out natural, and that really helped me a lot. All right, tip number 6 is do not care about what other people think about your level of Spanish. So if you're taking a class and it's your first class, just put yourself out there and just say, hey, you know what? I have at least the confidence to go and do this where 99% of my friends don't do it or don't even take the time to do it. So give yourself credit for that. And when you're in the class, make the most of it and do not care what other people think. I think I could have learned so much more Spanish in Spain if I hadn't cared. I definitely still cared. I was like, oh my God, I sound so stupid. No, you don't. Honestly, when you're trying or making any effort, think about it. Think about when you're at a store, you meet someone else who speaks a language that you don't know, and every little word that they say, even if it doesn't sound perfectly right, you're like, oh yeah, okay, and then you can help them. It's the same like when you're in, let's say in Spain, and you're speaking a little bit of Spanish to a person on the street. They're like, it's easy for them and they appreciate it, and you've gotten out of your comfort zone. And do not worry about making mistakes, because the more mistakes you make, you're actually learning more. So more mistakes you make equal more learning. So just put yourself out there, don't be afraid, and you're actually going to learn a lot more. So tip number 7, and this is something you can do abroad or in your own city, is to find an intercambio. An intercambio is a person who speaks your target language. So if it's Spanish, you want to find someone who can speak Spanish, but they also want to learn your language. So if you speak English, they're going to want to learn English. And you can meet with them for, I would say, at least twice a week. If you're taking a class, maybe just once a week, but I would say at least twice a week for 2 hours or so, or 1 hour. And you could speak Spanish for 30 minutes, and then they can practice their English for 30 minutes with you. An intercambio just means like a language exchange, and these are free. They don't charge anything because you're helping them and they're helping you. So look for an intercambio in your area. All right, so that was tip number 7. Tip number 8 is don't give up. Learning a language takes time, patience, and persistence. And it's going to take years. A lot of people, I mean, I watch the videos on here, oh, I learned a language in 1 month or 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever. But it's really a lifelong process, because the more that you learn, then you realize there's so much more to learn, and it takes time. I don't think it takes so long to become like basically conversational, but to really carry on an in-depth language and to learn how to express your emotions or your opinions, and to use conditionals like I wish I could do this in another language, is a really high level of language. And that's going to take some time, patience, and really persistence and practice. So don't give up and don't think, oh, it's going to take forever, I'm not going to start at all. It's better to start now and to learn at least something. You're going to be way ahead of the game and really proud of yourself. So those are my 8 tips for learning Spanish. And if you have any other suggestions or recommendations of things that have helped you to learn Spanish or any other language, please drop them below in the comments. I love talking to people in the comments, answering questions, and other people find them really helpful too. So definitely leave it in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share with a friend who wants to learn Spanish. Definitely subscribe to this channel if you want to know more about living in South Florida. And yeah, that's it. I look forward to seeing you next video, and definitely check out some videos over here, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.